animals who we're talking about, and effectively advocating for animals can save hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of lives during our lifetime. But if we don't advocate effectively, the opposite may be true. The other thing I wanted to point out real quick, which I thought was relevant, so Mercy for Animals, another activity they engage in is in every city where they have a regional office, MFA always marches in the local pride parades behind a banner that says no one is free when others are oppressed, highlighting the similarities between gay rights and animal rights movement, and really emphasizing that what the animal rights movement is really about. It's a message of compassion for all beings, and that's what I'd like to highlight here. Here's some great pictures. The bottom one is in Dallas on a rainy day where we had over 25 volunteers come out. And this picture on the left, I put this one in here because this is Nathan Runkle, who's the founder and executive director of Mercy for Animals, who got out in the Chicago Pride Parade himself to parade. And this next picture, probably one of the most adorable outreach pictures I've ever taken. This is at Houston Pride Parade, probably the youngest activist we've ever had, handing out Why Love One Beneath the Other brochure. The last point I wanted to make before I went into the 10 tips on effective advocacy is talk a little bit about Mercy for Animals' mission statement. So Mercy for Animals, their mission statement is to prevent cruelty to farmed animals and promote compassionate food choices and policies. MFA is an organization that focuses exclusively on farmed animals because in the US, over 9 billion land animals are used and killed for food each year. 9 billion is a number that I know for me, it's even hard to conceptualize 9 billion of anything, right? But when we look at the number of animals used and killed for food in the US compared to the number of animals in the entertainment industry, in being used in laboratories for experiments, or being used for clothing, you can see that when we're talking, it's tens of millions, right? And tens of millions of animals used for clothing, entertainment, or experiments is tens of millions of animals too many. But if we want to, with our limited time and resources as activists, if we want to be able to help the most number of animals in the least amount of time, that's why MFA has chosen to focus exclusively on farmed animals. All right, so here we are getting into effective vegan advocacy. So, I forgot this one, Tip 1 is be respectful. No one wants to be yelled at. I don't think any of us have ever been convinced of something by being who was in the position on the right where someone yelled loud enough where they effectively convinced us to change our behaviors, right? And I guess it is here where I should point out that these 10 tips are probably very obvious, right? We all know these things, but like I said, with our limited time and resources, we need to be very aware and conscientious of how it is that we're representing the animals when we are participating in activism. So no one, being rude and yelling and mean is never going to convince anyone of anything. Even if someone is rude and being mean back to us, while it may be the easy option to yell or be rude back, as advocates we need to take the high road and be calm and always respectful. There's a story, so Vegan Outreach, which is another prominent animal rights organization, which has done a lot of great work. One of their main volunteers who's handed out over hundreds of thousands of leaflets is someone who witnessed a conversation between an activist and someone else where the other person was being rude, but they saw the activist being calm, cool, and collected, and that influenced this other person who was raised on a dairy farm to then come over, get some information, and learn about these issues. So not only do we need to be respectful because the person who we're dialoguing with won't take us seriously. Imagine how many people are walking by and seeing this crazy animal activist yelling at someone, right? So what we need to do is be friendly, positive, upbeat. As Maud said, people like to think, we all think we're good people. So we need to use that fact to not think of the other person as someone who we need to convince of anything, right? So there are polls that have shown that over 97% of people believe that animals deserve some sort of legal protection. 97% of people in America don't agree on anything, right? So we don't need to change anyone's belief. As animal advocates, all we need to do is encourage them to make behavioral choices that align with their beliefs. Tip number 2, be optimistic. Obviously, celebrities, there are many celebrities who have a big following, and I don't think there's any celebrity out there who is pessimistic. Ellen DeGeneres, who's vegan, if on her talk show, if she just talked about the horrors of factory farming, not many people would probably watch her show. Now she has a website up with a lot of helpful information and tips and resources on how to make a switch to a vegan diet. So because she's so optimistic, along with these other celebrities, people are more likely to listen to what she has to say. So if we stand out, we want to stand out for being positive and upbeat. Dress for success. We want people to focus on the message. We don't want people to come up with any excuse for why they don't have to listen to what we're saying, right? So if we're going to go leafleting, for example, down in Wall Street in New York City, it might help to put on a dress shirt, some dress pants, and go out and leaflet. On the contrary, if you're leafleting at a punk rock concert, it may be appropriate to wear a bright red mohawk. So just as ineffective it may be to go leafleting on Wall Street in a mohawk, it's probably just as ineffective to put on a suit and go leafleting at a punk rock concert, right? So we need to dress for the venue that we're going to be doing activism at. Tip number 4, start a conversation. And this is something that I continue to work on myself. It's a lot easier said than done. So the idea is we don't want to have a lecture at someone. We want to have a conversation with someone. And there are a few different ways, there are a few tricks, or not tricks, but there are a few good things to keep in mind when doing that. And one way is to validate each question. So if someone says to me, oh, what are we going to do with all the animals when everyone goes vegan? So as an activist, I may have gotten this question hundreds of times, right? It may seem like a very silly question. But if I respond to that by saying, oh, that's a stupid question, they're probably not going to listen to what I have to say. So one good thing to do is always say, that's a great question. I used to wonder that myself too, as ways to validate each question. Another thing to do that helps in having a conversation is always ask a question, right? That way you can have a dialogue instead of having a one-way conversation. Yeah. So number 5, find common ground. So like I said, 97% of people believe that animals deserve some sort of legal protection. So wherever you are on the spectrum, there are plenty of people who feel similarly about animals. And we need to encourage people to take the first step, not the last. So often, vegetarianism and veganism are presented as a black or white issue, right? You're either vegetarian or you're not, or you're vegan or you're not. And that simply couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is anytime someone makes an active step to reduce their meat consumption, that's helping animals, saving the environment, and doing tons of good. And people have also been found to continue along the path once they make that first decision. Tip number 6, be prepared. And this goes along with having a conversation. So who here has gotten this question? Where do you get your protein as vegetarian or vegan? Anyone? Right. So this is another one where it's, might be easy to respond saying, oh, that's a silly question, But first, we'll validate the question. That's a great question too. I used to wonder, before I went vegetarian or vegan, I used to wonder that too. And then I found out that all these wonderful plant-based foods had a ton of protein in them, and actually we're consuming a lot more protein than we need to in America. So we can predict, not predict, but there are a handful of questions that, as activists, you're going to get over and over and over again, right? Where do you get your protein? What are we going to